Well, a very warm welcome to another vlog. This time around, it's all about photographing ferns. And ferns are an ancient group of plants, 400 million years old. That's how long they've been here. They were the first plants that developed vascular systems. The phloem and the xylem, enabling them to transport up closer to the sun and create larger leaves to capture the energy needed to create the sugars for them to survive. And to be amongst them, they predated the dinosaurs, and we only have to use our imagination to picture those dinosaurs, those creatures, the early mammals. Particularly here in Ireland, we had bear and wolf. We had the great Irish elk. And to picture those creatures walking through a lush river, and the banks here are covered in ferns. It only takes a little bit of imagination and daydreaming, something I think we're very deprived of these days with our attention drawn to social media. So let's do a little bit of daydreaming and a little bit of photography of ferns in this vlog. It's not an easy task. Ferns, there's no colour there bar green, and there's very little variation in each plant of that hue of green. So structure, it's got to be about structure, and it's got to be about background, taking the ferns in the context of the water, in the context of the walls they grow on. We'll start here, and already I can see one or two plants that are just standing out and calling to me to take a photograph of them. So let's do that. What a magical spot. The mosses here are soaked. To stand beneath this little shoot, it's just wonderful. So I'm in my first composition here. It's a little bit divided by the mosses, but we have here, I think I'm good with the wellies. We have here on the right hand side, I think it's a lady fern. This fern here is a hard fern, the narrow-leaved fern. And there's a nice little trio of plants here. Just to juxtapose that against the waterfall here. So let's take this shot. And I'll turn my gaze to these walls. They're almost luminous with the mosses and the bryophytes and one or two ferns here and there. So I'd like to take a moment to interrupt this vlog just to talk briefly about filters. And if you're starting off with waterfall or macro photography, particularly ferns here, and they're so reflective. So it is ideal to have a circular polarizer to bring the sheen down on the ferns and many other reflective plants. Water is also reflective, so it takes the sheen out of the water and it adds to the richness of the image when you use a circular polarizer. Additionally, we use neutral density filters to enable us to shoot at slower shutter speeds to get that dreamy effect on water, whether it's a stream, a waterfall or the sea, and to experiment with ultra long exposures, 4-8 minute exposures, etc. So the guys at Freewell Filters were very kind and sent me a whole case of filters. And I thought I'd take the opportunity as a way of thanking them to compare them with the case filters, which are really considered excellent filters, and I've never had a problem with them at all. So I'm going to take this image with a circular polarizer from the case filter set and the Freewell filter set. And we just compare and see if there's any difference, particularly with regards to a color cast. 2 points I'd like to make about the Freewell filters that are a weakness really of the case filters, apart from optical quality, which I haven't seen yet. We'll see it when we compare these two images. Are number one, the thickness of the band around the filter. It's much easier to get your fingers around it. I find the case filters, particularly in colder weather, it's very hard to grip them and pop them off the filter holder. Secondly, and I'll show this image separately, the magnetic lens cap that comes with the filter set has a little bull nose on it that you can pop up and pull, which I find very handy when you're either attaching or removing the lens cap from the camera. But for the moment, I'll put these two images up, just the raw files, no post-processing, and I'll let you decide which filter set you think is best, or if there's any difference at all. Okay, so let's move on to the next subject. Now, there's a few considerations apart from the use of filters in photographing water and ferns and reflective surfaces. The first is, within the forest, it's very dark, the ISO is way up, and we want to keep the shutter speed down for the water. But this waterfall, it creates its own wind. There's no wind today, but around the waterfall, the ferns are constantly moving. So when I thought it was necessary, I took additional shots at a higher ISO. So I'm on top of a mound, a little bit dodgy, bit of a drop into the water there, so I need to be careful. I've left my camera up there for the time being because there isn't room for a tripod, a camera, and myself. So I just wanted to explain this scene, and I'm not sure whether it's going to work as an image, but I'm going to try to make an image here. You've got this beautiful, old, twisted, gnarled branch covered in moss. And then as we move around, we have the ferns here to the right of the branch. And in the middle, I want that waterfall to be prominent. A sixth of a second will be ideal. You can see a little bit of movement in the ferns here. So I need to watch that, maybe bring up the shutter speed for that shot. Now the only downside with this image is what's up to here, to the left of the branch here, which is a little bit messy. And I'm thinking the best way to deal with that is to burn it in post. So we'll take this little image, it's some very dark spots. I'm going to have to be careful of that as well. Not that I want much detail in those dark areas, but we'll take this image and we'll move on to the next location. It's magical here, it's just magical. So there it is. Why is it that some of the compositions we find tend to put us in precarious positions? The tripod is balanced on 3 mossy rocks here. As you can see, I haven't extended it as high as it'll go. I think this is a male fern beneath me. It's quite a large fern, and it's the only fern that I could find to place in a wide-angle view in front as a prominent foreground to the waterfall. That grey wagtail calling again, beautiful birds, lovely bit of yellow on the underside of the tail. So the shot itself, bear with me 1 second, and I'll read the settings that I have. It's at a fifth, sixth of a second for the water, really. You can see the fern here is really, really prominent in the image. It's f10, but I have focus stack. That fern is so close to the camera, and I've tried to include as much of it as possible. There's also fern down here. The first image I took excluded it, but it creates a sweep to the left of frame and beneath the foreground, with a little bit of water running mid-ground, and the two beautiful flows of the waterfall up above. Look at that, it's magic, isn't it? So I'm quite happy with this image. Again, just a polarizer used, very dark here, ISO up at 800. So I'll need to stack those images, and I'll do that and put that image up there, and we'll move on to the next location. Well, I've come up now into the oak woodland. As you can see, the floor of the oak has been overtaken with the bracken and the other ferns. A good variety of fern species here beneath the oak trees. Deer calling up above. I've had cuckoo over the far side. And whilst delving into the identification of ferns, I read into the life cycle, and it's absolutely fascinating. It has two main states. This is the sporophyte state. This is what we see, the actual fern plant. And on the backs of these leaves, sori are little sacs that hold the spores. Now, the spores disperse, preferably onto a wet surface. Now, the gametophyte is an incredible stage within the fern's life cycle. It's almost identical to a bryophyte, to a liverwort, for instance. It's quite a tiny heart-shaped object, and within that we have the sperm and the ovary. And at the bottom of the gametophyte, it needs water, it needs soakage for the sperm to swim, to fertilize. And then from that, then the zygote is created. And then the fern grows from that. At the back of the leaves here, we can see a little bit early now, but they're tiny, the sori. These are the sacs from which the spores are dispersed. But it's incredible that the hint, the clue to the fern's evolution is in the gametophyte stage. In many respects, it's akin to the clues that we find in human embryos. We have the embryo with gills or gill-like features. We also have a fully formed tail early on, which hints to our mammalian cousins. Similarly, a fetus is covered in hair. So all of these clues are embedded in these phases, in the embryonic stage and in the gametophyte stage of the ferns here. And it really is, it's like reading a book on evolution. It is written for us. It is shown to us. The evidence is there within the ferns, within the life cycle. So I'm going to use some of the branches here to set these ferns amongst a more landscape shot. And then I'm going to look for an epiphyte, like a polypod fern. And the epiphyte is effectively a relationship between, for example, a fern and a tree, where there's really no give and take. It's just the fern living upon the tree. There's no symbiotic relationship as such. So we'll have a look for that. I don't know how successful I'm going to be. I've been lucky with the midges all day, because when you get into mid-June, it's usually warmer, the midges are out. But throughout the day it's been a little bit windy, it's very cool, it's about 12, 13 degrees. So we'll take a photograph in this area, I'll put that up and we'll move on and see if I can find an epiphyte and to capture an image of that. It's a little stream. It's quite dry now, even though there has been a little bit of rain. And I've visited this place before. I'm a little bit heartbroken. There's a couple of really characterful oak trees that have been uprooted. You'll see one directly behind me there, another one in front of me. But it has given me the opportunity to find those epiphytes, those ferns growing on the trees rather than on the ground. And they're growing out of the moss, the thick moss that is typical of the oak trees here on the lower slopes of Glendalough. So I've taken a focus stacked image, a very simple image of just the two fronds opposite each other on the actual branch. Now there are hard ferns growing out of the wall here. A little drip, drip, drip as the water makes its way down the hill. But I may leave the vlog there. And I was thinking to myself in wrapping up this vlog, how stimulating it can be to pick a subject such as ferns, photographing ferns, because it just gives you another window into the landscape. And it has done that for me. I have photographed that waterfall earlier on the vlog, and never through that prism of looking for ferns in the foreground specifically. So it helps us train our eye and look for new compositions in landscapes that we may be familiar with. If I take one or two other images here of ferns on the wall here, I may or may not do, because the midges really are having a say as well. In even though there's a little breeze, every time a breeze gets up, it's a mixed blessing. On the one hand, the midges go, but on the other hand, it makes photographing ferns quite difficult. So I may put one or two other images up there, or we might finish off with the little fern here on the moss on the oak branch that has fallen. So until next time, thank you so much for watching.